Hey folks, my name is Jen, and today we are going to talk about everything that I read in July. So over the course of last month I read 4 books. What I did read was 2 adventure, 1 classic, and 1 fantasy, and I think we'll talk about the adventure books first. In my reading of my Cussler-thon, if you will, I read Dragon, which is a Dirk Pitt novel. So this one starts out with I think it's a B-52, no, I lied, a B-29 bomber. I don't know planes, you guys. B-52s, it's a good band though. A B-29 bomber, it was carrying a 3rd atomic bomb to Japan, but it was actually shot down and landed somewhere in the ocean at the end of World War II. It had, of course, an atomic bomb on it. It was lost for years and years. We skip to present day, or present day at the time in this novel, which I think was supposed to be in the early 90s. And our heroes, Dirk and Elle, and the rest of Numa, end up getting pulled into a plot by a group of Japanese nationalists who are set to basically blackmail and hold hostage the United States with strategically placed nuclear weapons. So it's a rush against time to stop the evil plot. Involves like secret underground, underwater, well, underground and underwater bases and different things like that. There's a lot going on in this book. So firstly, I guess let's talk about my likes with this novel first, and then we can get into all of the things that I very much did not enjoy about this book. Firstly, Dirk, at the time when we're finding him in this story, Dirk is, and I think Elle too, they're down on the bottom of the ocean because Numa has actually successfully placed a underwater base, pretty much. If you know, like, any of the plans that people have talked about kind of up in the air about what would it be like if we terraformed Mars kind of situation, like that, like placing those specific dome things on the planet and then pumping in like oxygen and having like a whole world and scientific base and stuff like that on there. If you've ever seen like plans of what people think it could look like, that's basically what this is like, except on the ocean floor. So they basically set up this base underground to the main purpose is to like do coastal things or keep track of like aquatic stuff and the like ocean currents and shit like that. That's the main purpose, but it's also like, hey, if this succeeds, then, you know, maybe we can talk about putting other colonies and doing things under the ocean and shit like that. Anyway, so that, really cool. I actually really enjoyed the scenes that took place there. There weren't that many, but the part of the book that did take place in the ocean floor was pretty cool. I do enjoy any time that Dirk goes back to DC or is in DC and we get a look at his home, which his home is in an airport hangar at the back of like a airport. And like he lives there because in the office upstairs has been converted into like his apartment space, a really nice apartment space, and then the rest of it, the hangar, is open, and that's where he can keep his collection of antique vehicles. I say vehicles because a lot of them are cars, but at varying points in the novels, I can't remember if it's in this one or not, but varying points in the novels there are a couple of different aquatic vehicles and also a plane at some point. So does he have part of a train in there at one point? I think so. Yeah, basically a wicked cool collection of things, normally on the back of Cussler's novels, not so much on the paperbacks, but usually on the back of the hardcovers there will be a picture of Clive with the car that featured in the novel, or sometimes if his son helped write it, his son will also be in the photo too. And it's like because Clive Cussler also collected antique cars, so yeah. Anyway, that part I really like. I liked all of that. I enjoy scenes with his on-again, off-again girlfriend, Lauren, most of the time. So those are the things I really like. Banter between Al and him, of course, great. Banter with Admiral Sandecker, wonderful. Introduction of other characters, I really enjoyed them. I had fun with all of that. Definitely action-packed, super action-packed. Just started and kept going. There were no slow points in this novel at all, which is pretty great because they're fairly thick. Then we get on to the things I did not like so much, such as Dirk being a chauvinistic asshole for the majority of the novel. He is definitely not as cool and fun and charming as he is from what I remember in the later novels. Like in the other novels, I feel like I've said this before in my other review of like Raise the Titanic last month, but in the other novels that I've read, I mean, he's very careful, definitely someone who is not to be trifled with. Like, he is 100% a killer. He will straight up see a problem and he will fucking get rid of it. There is no like moral conundrum for him like you see in a lot of other heroes that I enjoy, where it's like you struggle with the question of, I could kill them, but should I? Even the Batman conundrum of, he has sworn not to kill anyone, but damn does he want to murder Joker, you know? Like, you don't even have like any of that. Dirk will just straight up fucking shank a guy. He does not give a single fuck. And it's a lot. It's definitely a flaw of his that I will more or less accept just because of of his like backstory and stuff. It's not great, but he's usually just getting rid of really bad people and he has no other choice most of the time. That's pretty much the whole deal. But still, in the other novels, like, on the other side of that is someone who is very charming and funny and loyal and just has a wicked good like sense of humor and a mischievous way of like getting out of trouble and sticking into like bad guys and stuff like that. Like a very playful kind of nature to him, which I usually like in characters, because that kind of like mischievous getting back at someone thing is like it's very like Hawkeye and Trapper from like MASH, and I kind of dig that. That's something that I really enjoy. And again, a little bit romantic, very sweet sometimes. He's a very loyal friend. But in these earlier novels, it's like he's still kind of funny, but he's also really mean. And he's also, again, such a fucking chauvinist. Like, just the things he says or the way he acts towards women is just not great. And it, like, I don't know if it's like trying to be respectful but not at the same time. It just, instead of being like more, you know, cooler, he ends up being like Sean Connery's version of James Bond, for example, who just punch a lady in the face. Like, he does not and I don't really like that. Another like part of it was Al's behavior too. At one point in the novel, and I'm not going to say anything about it in detail because it is kind of a spoiler, I guess, but Al just, his behavior towards a particular female character was just not, it just is very disrespectful. And I didn't enjoy that either, and I was very disappointed in him. The major part of this, though, that I didn't really like so much was mostly the plot. And it has to do with yeah, the whole plot of the Japanese fanatical nationalists that are using nuclear weapons to hold people hostage and are fully planning on blowing a bunch of people up and like having nuclear weapons on their own soil in case it needs to be used for other, it's just not great. That really bothered me because, and I feel like I've said this on my online reviews on like Storygraph and like Goodreads and stuff like that, but I am not Japanese. I've never actually been to Japan. I don't know anyone who is actually Japanese. So I can't fully like speak with any major amount of authority, really, but as someone who really likes Japan and knows a fair amount about their culture and stuff through varying types of media that I have consumed since I was like 14, 15 years old, I just don't think that Cussler really understands the Japanese people. I don't think he chose the right country for this type of narrative. I mean, I don't know what the right country would be for this type of narrative, I suppose, but I definitely don't think that Japan, I don't think he understands Japan and the Japanese people and their culture and their history. We bombed the shit out of them. And that is something that they still live with like every day, and they take it very, 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 very seriously. And it's only been recently that they've even entertained the idea of potentially trying to have any type of nuclear weapons for defense, only because of how scary fucking North Korea is. There's fanatical people in any culture and in any country. We have fanatics here. There's always a rotten apple who's gonna spoil the whole fucking barrel. There's always like fanatical people who think they're doing the right thing but they're really not, and that's just a thing that happens. But I feel like the destruction and the terror, the devastation at the end of World War II, the amount of time that it's taken them to rebuild, and even the devastation and stuff that happened when their plant like had that problem several years ago, and them still trying to recover from it. I feel like Cussler just really missed the mark here. The themes of like destruction and hubris and all of that are like major parts of their fiction still. That is something they're still like struggling with, and it's a message that they continuously put out there over and over and over to remind themselves, yo, this is bad. I also kind of put that out towards the world of, hey guys, this is really bad. I just feel like, yeah, I just don't buy it. I just could not divorce myself from what I know of Japan and the Japanese people. I could not separate myself from my knowledge of that to buy any part of this plot of any group of people deciding that within the country, deciding that, oh yeah, this is a thing we're gonna do. I don't buy it. I don't see that as a thing that would happen. And I know it could be argued because the timeline is always a little bit different in here, and there's always technology that we don't currently have. Like, I think these novels are usually set like, I don't know, 5 to 10 years before the present time when they're published, I think is the normal thing for this. So the argument could be made, well, this technology just isn't available yet, but it's this, or this thing, this political climate isn't quite there yet, but here it is. So it could be argued, well, it's just an alternate time, it's just fiction and stuff. But I just feel like, yeah, I just feel like Cussler missed the mark here. I feel like he doesn't, yeah, that's all I'm saying. I mean, I wish I could separate my brain from that, but I just could not, yeah, I could not fucking buy it. And I think that ultimately soured the plot because I cannot buy what he was writing the entire time. And I was just like, this is stupid. This is really dumb. You don't understand anything about Japan. That was basically my feeling, like, the whole time. So that was unfortunate. Yeah, I ended up giving this 3 stars, and it's only 3 stars because of the action, because of the cool factors of it, and also I felt like maybe I'm just being a little too fucking harsh on a book that man's man wrote in the early 90s, when admittedly maybe people didn't really pay attention to as much as Japan as they do now. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it was 3 stars. Okay, the other adventure book that I read was The Goonies. This is a novelization of the movie, and the novelization is by... shit, who's it by? James Caan. So, The Goonies, if you don't know, the movie and this book are about a group of kids. They are called the Goonies because they come from the Goondocks, which is a more poorer side of this kind of affluentish town. So they live over there, and unfortunately their home has been threatened by the rich, like affluent members of the town, because they want to build a new country club golf course thing where all this whole like neighborhood area is. As this book opens pretty much the day or a couple of days before not only Halloween, I think, but also right when they're supposed to move. It's like a day or two before they're supposed to move, because they are being evicted. Again, they weren't able to scrape up money yet to stop this from happening. So yeah, their homes, their whole neighborhood is going to be demolished. Fucking rich ass folks' golf course is going to be spread out over the whole place, and they're all going to be kind of shoved hither and thon, separated completely. Some of them, I think, have to move entirely from the area, and it's just really sucks. The kids are just like really depressed about everything, and then over the course of just looking for something interesting to do, they come across a treasure map, and Mikey, the instigator, I guess, of everything, decides, hey, this is a looks like a treasure map to this famous pirate's like treasure that's supposedly buried around here. We should go looking for it, and is trying to convince his friends to go on this adventure to find the treasure and just do one last adventure thing. So this is like a kind of, sort of, coming of age-ish sort of thing. So basically everyone who sets off is Mikey, his friends Mouth, Chunk, and Data. I adore Data. Like, he is my favorite character from the movie. I also really love the actor. I don't think he was in that many things. I know he was in The Goonies, he was in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which is also my favorite Indiana Jones movie. And I feel like he was in a couple other things when he was a kid, and most recently he was in that movie, was it Everything Everywhere All at Once, something like that. I haven't seen it yet. I do want to, because I think it involves like time travel and stuff, but yeah, anyway, love him. So that's those 4 characters. Of course, Mikey is Sean Astin, who, Lord of the Rings, again. Mouth is... we won't talk about Mouth. I don't know who plays Chunk. I don't think he's in a lot of things anymore. And then I guess the teenage actors were probably famous in the 80s. I have never seen them before. I've only ever seen them in The Goonies. I have no freaking clue who they are. Anyway, so it's those 4 kids, and then it's Mikey's older brother, Brand, then the girl he has a crush on, and then also her friend. So yeah, that's the whole group. So they set off on this journey, and unfortunately at the same time they also run into this gang of robbers called the Fratellis, and they are also initially just trying to hide out. and do their nefarious deeds away from the police and stuff, and things get complicated. What can I say about this book? Well, I do really like movie novelizations. This is a guilty pleasure of mine, is new movie novelizations. Most of the time, I will acknowledge they are not that great. Because certain things feel like they don't really translate as well into novels as they do visually in the movie. I think the best movie novelization that I have read is the Back to the Future novelization. That was really good. We got a lot of extra scenes. There was a lot of background information that we got about not only Marty and Doc, but also Lorraine and George, and a little bit about Biff. And it was just like, it's a really good novelization, to the point of I almost wonder if that came first, but I'm pretty sure it didn't come first. Most of these novelizations are, I think, geared towards kids, because most of the ones that I do own are maybe geared towards children, because it's like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or Rugrats in Paris, or varying Dinosaur, varying stuff like that, are most of the movie novelizations that I've read and own. Maybe that's why they don't always... The writing is not as, like, cool as it might be in other versions, which I think is a shame, because, you know, just because it's for kids doesn't mean it has to be dumbed down, or doesn't mean that you can't add in extra stuff, you know. I have not seen The Goonies in a very long time, so I could not tell you if there was anything extra added in here at all. It went beat for beat, I think, pretty much what I remember the movie doing, except everything is, well, most everything is told from Mikey's point of view. There is like one chapter or something that is told from Chunk's point of view. I think it did, like I said, contain beat for beat what the movie is. So it's good in that sense, but again, sometimes when things are translated from visual media to a book, it doesn't really go so well, in my opinion. Like, the jokes just seem cheesier when they are described fully in the book, as opposed to you watching it on the TV. Like, his inventions, whether they go wrong or right, and Chunk's, especially Chunk's clumsiness, just sounds even more cheesier and lame, written out in detail, than it would be if you're actually just watching the movie. So that's something. Also, I think it's just kind of outdated, which I mean, it's a movie geared towards kids and teens in the 80s, and unfortunately, a lot of jokes that were made in the 80s don't really hit anymore, or just feel very outdated, or you have to pause a moment and go, whoa, that's not great. He and his friends are, I think, like 13, and then you have like an older girl who's definitely 17, I think 16 or 17, and then it's like, but there might be something going on with her and a 13-year-old, and that just feels kind of skeevy, a little bit. Things that don't quite make sense. Like, for example, so they're all going to be evicted like the next day or whatever, but nobody has packed anything in the house. Like, the Rube Goldberg machine they have to open the front door at Mikey and Bran's house is still operational. The whole system for data to go between his house and Mikey's is still operational. Their mom has knickknacks around the house still that Chunk can easily break. The attic is still stuffed full of his dad's things from the, like, Historical Society and Museum or whatever. It's chock full of shit, and that's where they find the pirate treasure map. And it's like, if you guys are gonna be evicted like tomorrow, you would have thought that things would have been packed packed, things would have been mostly moved to somewhere else. And I understand everybody hoping there's like a Hail Mary of like something will save things, but they're all pretty much to the point of realizing that nothing is going to save this. So it's kind of bizarre to just see that like nobody's moved anything. That doesn't, if that makes any sense. And I know, it's just a movie, it's just a novelization of a movie, but I think that was like something that just was, I don't know, it was something that I was like, but that's so weird. I will say that Mikey tells a story, and this sounds exactly like a kid telling a story. I can't remember if this is how Mikey talked, because again, it's probably been like a decade since I've seen this movie. But it does sound like a kid telling a story, and I like that. Actually, that is something that I usually enjoy about novelizations, is that normally, most of the time, it is told from the point of view of one of the main characters, through their voice entirely, and that's usually pretty cool. The adventure part of it, lots of adventure, lots of fun action-y parts, but again, a little outdated, super cheesy, and yeah, things didn't always translate well into the novel as they did in the movie, I think. Yeah, so I ended up giving this like 3 stars. Then I read a fantasy novel, and that was The Castle of Lear by Lloyd Alexander. This is book 3 in the Chronicles of Berdane series. I've been doing a reread of the series over the past couple of months. We've got Taran of Caer Dallben, we have Princess Eilonwy, we have Fleur de Flam the Bard, you've got Gurgi, the whatever the hell he is. Yeah, that's pretty much everybody, and then you have the introduction of a couple of new characters. For this novel, the wizard Dallben has decided that Eilonwy needs to go to be trained to be a lady and not a hero. You know, that old chestnut of bullshit. Taran's basically accompanying her, along with Prince Rune of this other place. It's the island of the Isle of Mona. And so Rune is the Prince of Mona, and he has been sent to collect Eilonwy and also Taran, basically, because they are going back to Mona, where she is going to again be trained to be a lady in the court there, and by the queen. So Taran's not very impressed with Rune. Taran is coming to grips with the fact that he might have some feelings for Eilonwy, and it's really difficult for him to be dropping her off at this island, but he also wants to make sure that she's safe, and he also wants to check these people out, because he's not very much impressed by Rune. Rune is annoying, Rune is troublesome, Rune is clumsy and has no common sense and just constantly seems to be getting himself into trouble he has to be fucking saved from. So Tara's not impressed, first of all. Then you get to the castle, and like, the queen is also super annoying. She's very passive-aggressive, and Eilonwy hates it because she doesn't want to be trained to be a lady. She wants to do all of the normal things that she was doing at Caer Dallben, and she also is like, hates this because the queen, again, is passive-aggressive and annoying, and then all the other ladies in court, and the girls her age, are all twittering, and boring. So she feels very much like this sucks. Of course, she doesn't have long to ponder this, because unfortunately our old evil baddie, Akron, Enchantress Queen Akron, is back for Eilonwy. So Taran has to team up with some familiar faces and some new companions to basically try to save Eilonwy from Akron. I think for the most part has a little bit of middle book syndrome. It definitely has a plot that moves along, but it feels somehow, even though they are constantly in motion, it does kind of feel like this one drags a little bit more than the other books in the series. So just, I don't know, it's not as fun, I guess, as some of the others, because Eilonwy is missing for a majority of this book, and that's rather unfortunate, because as much as she can be kind of annoying sometimes, I also really like the banter between her and Taryn, and everybody kind of doing shit together. I love it when the party stays together. But ultimately, I really love all of the interactions with Taryn and Fluter and Gurgi. Flutterflam is still my favorite character, and Gurgi, I find Gurgi less annoying than I did in the first go-round of reading this series. I still found Prince Rune annoying, and I wish he was in this less. And yeah, that's all I can say about him pretty much. But I did enjoy this book a little bit more than I think I had the previous one, or the previous time that I read this. It was just, I don't know, a little bit more fun. And I noticed a lot more of the character growth of Taryn throughout this novel than I had the first time through reading it. So that's something that I really liked as well, and I think really helps to set it up for book 4, Taryn Wanderer, where he is the one you see for most of the novel anyway. I mean, there's other characters thrown in here and there, but he's alone for a chunk of it. So yeah, I think that was perfect setup for future character growth and the next novel, which I'm currently rereading. So yeah, I gave this, I can't remember if the first time I read it if I gave it 3 stars, if it was always 4 stars, but it was 4 stars this time. And then the last book that I read was God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater by Kurt Vonnegut. So this is following Elliot Rosewater. He is the heir to a massive fortune. His ancestors basically made a whole bunch of money, and at one point his particular branch of the family, his ancestor, screwed the other branch of the family. And yeah, they've maintained the majority of the family fortune, which is put into this thing called the Rosewater Foundation, which essentially they can pull lots of money out of, but it doesn't get taken away from them by the government because they have it listed as like a charitable thing. Some of the money stuff, it kind of went over my head a little bit, but that's basically that situation, I think, for the most part. Elliot is going through a lot. He's always kind of just done whatever, but when he was in World War II, things changed for him irrevocably. He went through something extremely traumatic when he was over there, and ever since he just has not been the same. He met his wife while he was overseas, and they had a pretty okay marriage up until the point that Elliot decided that he wanted to go home. And not home to the family mansion or whatever, but he wanted to go back to Rosewater County, where his family was from originally, and where they have not lived in a long time. I'm thinking since the Civil War, they pretty much have not lived there. Rosewater, a sort of functioning alcoholic who loves being a volunteer fireman, basically heads to this town with his wife and decides to adopt Rosewater and funnel money there and set up, like, they have a branch of the Rosewater Foundation there, and he decides to become the Rosewater Foundation and inject himself into this community and help their fire department and be a volunteer fireman there, and also be everything that the town wants him to be. Do they need money for something? Do they need him to help with varying activities there, put a roof over somebody's head, fix things, baptize their kids, go around and be like a listening ear to people when they call him with their problems. He always is doing these things, and his wife tries to help, but also ends up having to leave because of having a breakdown. The breakdown itself is part of a satire too, because she's so rich and now she cares too much about it, and it's fatal for her health to care about others. Like, it's a whole thing, because this is Vonnegut and this is a major satire, major work of satire. Meanwhile, Elliot's family, his dad, thinks he's absolutely insane. His dad is a senator who doesn't give a fuck about anyone who isn't rich and white and exactly like him. He does not give a shit. And he thinks his son is insane. And then you have people who work at the Rosewater Foundation, like the higher up parts of it, and he wants to basically convince the court that Elliot is indeed insane, and the rightful heir should be the other branch of the family, who lives basically middle to lower middle class. Ever since they were screwed out of the money, he wants to get that cousin-ish, times removed, however many, I guess, this cousin of Elliot's, he wants to get this guy and put him ahead in charge instead, and hopefully, you know, get his own stuff. So there's like a lot of complicating factors put in here, but it is mostly just a satire on wealth and capitalism and society, like society's views on capitalism and wealth and the poor, and just a lot of different stuff. It's so good, you guys. I was just absolutely hilarious at times. There's a lot of times that I laughed. It's so utterly ridiculous, but there's still such like a feeling underneath everything, underneath all of the humor, that's almost like dark or almost bleak satire. The characters are incredibly flawed. Like, every single one of them is incredibly flawed. Except maybe Kilgore Trout. Kilgore Trout is the stand-in for Kurt Vonnegut. He is a sci-fi author who I don't know if he's in every single one of Kurt Vonnegut's novels, but he's in quite a lot of them. Or if he's not physically in the novel, he's at least referenced at some point in them. I think he's the only one who isn't, like, super duper flawed, at least in this book. Everybody else is like incredibly horribly flawed. There's some stereotypes throughout the book that are kinda rough a little bit. They're not that great. There's this one particular stereotype of a gay guy at one point in the book that was just like, ooh. I read through the couple of chapters again, and then I was also like, when I was going at the end of the book to rate the book and everything, and I was looking at reviews, and I was looking on Reddit at different like thoughts people have had about like Vonnegut's handling of certain characters and certain stereotypes and things like that. Someone made the good point. I mean, it's not great, but it's a good point, which is something that I've sort of said before, but it just reminded me of it, and I think it's something that it would do well for others to remember too, is that you can't always hold an author from a certain time period to the same moral standards that we hold people today. Not to say that the right thing wasn't always the right thing and the wrong thing wasn't always the wrong thing, but there's a flat line, basically, of where right and wrong and morals sit, and depending on where we are as a society changes where the correct thing sits on that particular line. Not very exactly fair to the work itself. If the author of that time period, whether it be Vonnegut or Dumas or Dickens or anybody. It's not really necessarily fair to hold them on that same moral standard, because right here is where we are as a society, when at the time that this book was out, I think society was mostly over here. And there's really nothing like incredibly horrible about the stereotype either. I mean, it's not great, but I would hold it at the same level as perhaps things were done in movies of the 80s, or even like maybe some parts of like Will and Grace when that was on. I would say that the stereotype was more along the lines of that stuff, as opposed to actually being incredibly harmful. Like Vonnegut, even in like his stereotyping, he is never someone who is like, and this person should be put to death. Like he's never like that in anything, even when he's satirizing things. If he is making someone go to extremes, in a satirization, it's usually the villains of the story, the antagonists of the story. Those are the ones that are going to be more extremeful in their like thoughts and feelings and opinions and stuff like that. But the overall opinion of the novel is more, I think for the most part, even keeled. And so, I mean, even within this stereotype, saying that it's more along the lines of what commonly anyone, not only like dudes, but like anyone at that time, mostly like a just everyday society at the time, what they would think or feel about that, without being like wanting to cause harm. There's no harm within. I don't catch any bad intentions within the writing, is more what I'm meaning ultimately. It's just more offhand, oh, this is what people just, their opinion at the time was. If that makes any sense at all. I have to take this with the fact that this book was written in 1965. And 1965 was very different than 2024. Otherwise than that, I really love the writing. The satire, of course, wonderful, but also made me feel things. There were parts of this novel that made me irrationally angry, because there were certain characters in there I just wanted to grab them by their collar and just shake them. I really loved this. This is definitely a page turner. It read very quickly. I kind of lingered over it, because I was slightly annotating it, not with any like real purpose. I was just mostly me writing lines that particularly hit home or felt important to me, or things that I really found funny or very profound. So that's what I basically marked up in here. But I really loved the writing. I loved the overall message of the book, heart that is in this book for the most part, and I found a book that had made me cry a little bit. The ending made me cry a little bit. So yeah, I really loved this. I think this might be another one that is going to go on the top books of the year list already. I think I might love this more than Slaughterhouse-Five. It's definitely an easier read than Slaughterhouse-Five, because there's some rough shit that happens in that book. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read more Vonnegut. Like I think my goal now is to read every single Vonnegut book, because I just absolutely adore his writing. It's a 5-star read. I could go more deeply into different things I loved about this and examples and stuff, but I did also, while I was reading this, film a little bit of a reading vlog. So I don't want to get too much more deeply into this, because I do have like a vlog that I'm going to edit and post for you guys at some point, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. So yeah, if you're interested in hearing more of my thoughts, or hearing more like great quotes and stuff like that from this novel, look look out for that. Hey, so it is editing Jen of the future. I was just going through the video and it was almost done editing and realized that I actually forgot a book. It's not a book that I finished reading, it is a book that I DNF'd. One book in July, and that book was Priest by Sierra Simone. This was not a book that I had initially planned on reading. It's just I was seeing it pop up fairly often. And it's in a kind of a genre, well, a subgenre of a genre, I guess, that I don't read and would not consider myself to be a fan of, but I figured that, well, in the interest of me reading books that I say that I will never read, you know, continuing with my idea of trying to figure out if I'm too judgmental about certain books when I say I will never read this thing, because ew. Um, yeah, I decided to read um, that, and yeah, I DNF'd it. I don't know how much. Storygraph says that where I stopped in the book was at about 15%. So, the book uh is, I think it's technically considered a dark romance. I could be completely wrong, but I think it's technically under that genre. Um, but yeah, it's about a priest who ends up risking everything to bang one of his parishioners, or his sort of she's not exactly his okay. So, the reason why I DNF this. So I was raised Catholic, but I've never really ever, even when I was going to church all of the time, I was very much being dragged there. I didn't want to go, it's just my family went, so I mean, what else was I gonna do? Um, so the idea of a priest breaking his vows and falling in love with someone didn't like offend me or anything like that. That's not, um, yeah, that didn't really bother me. It was just more so initially I couldn't wrap my brain fully around anyone finding a dude in a priest collar to be sexy. I feel for the most part that when you see someone wearing a priest collar, that automatically cuts them off in the attraction uh department, as far as I'm concerned anyway, I guess. I don't know. Um the fact that the priest swears all the damn time. Um and started talking about how much he needed to basically whack off after seeing a girl he was attracted to. That was also something to wrap my brain around, um because that's not that I mean, it's not unheard of, I suppose. It's just it's different. But I was not really liking the book because the writing was not great. And I also didn't really like the main character because he just seemed like a lot, and it was kind of like, why did you even become a priest? Like, you clearly cannot handle um celibacy. Like, but I think what really killed it for me were the sex scenes. Uh, I'm not a prude, but degradation. I am not a degradation girly. If a guy was degrading to me, I'm more likely to punch him in the fucking throat than anything else. I don't find it attractive. If you find it attractive, or if that gets your goat going, I'm so happy for you, but that's just not me. So I did not enjoy um, reading that stuff. Um, but I continued because I was like, come on, you can get further through this book. It's like, you're not into it, plenty of people like this, so just keep reading, it's whatever. It's just got a little too weird because besides the degradation, thing and the way he was acting with her and the places that he ended up, you know, banging this girl. Um, he would call her his little lamb, which first of all, ew. Second of all, Twilight much. Thirdly, um, yo, the whole lamb and the shepherd is the flock. It's a very like biblical thing, and I just found that in poor taste, just on the verge of being a little too gross. And it mixed in with the fact that he was like giving her this pet name of being his little lamb. Um, he's clearly like crazily banging her in places he shouldn't be banging her. But then at the same time, he's like also talking to her about spiritually, like also trying to convert her into Catholicism at the same time. And um, no, that it was on all levels just not okay. Um, just uh, like a abuse of a power structure, just so freaking wrong. I didn't buy for a second that he was actually falling in love with her. He just wanted to like bang her silly. um I didn't like how he took a uh advantage of someone who is vulnerable and came to him in a moment of vulnerability. I didn't, it was just disgusting. It was just downright disgusting. And it also made my deconstructing religion ass feel very, very weird. And I couldn't really sift through all of my feelings about it and how grossed out and weird it was making me feel. So I was like, I can't do this book. I can't do it. So yeah, that was um that was one book I DNF'd this month. Yeah, back to past gen. So that was it, guys. That was everything that I read in July. I think, despite the fact that I had like 3 stars, I still feel pretty good about July for the most part, reading wise. And yeah, let me know if you guys have read any of these, if any of these sound interesting to you. Oh, and if any of you have read more Vonnegut than me, if you've read different um, books of his, please, if you think there is one that I should read next, like if there's one that you think, oh, definitely need to get to next, or based on how I feel about like Slaughterhouse-Five and Mr. Rosewater, let me know which one you think I should go to next, because I'm undecided at this point which one I want to which one I want to go to after this. But yeah, let me know if there's one or two or whatever in particular that you think I should. Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for always watching. Let me know how your reading month was. And yeah, anyway, if you're new here and you like to subscribe, please consider doing so. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.